Let's talk about dairy and the trade spat between the U.S. and Canada. It escalated when Trump threatened massive tariffs on Canadian goods, including a 250% tax on dairy. This public declaration of a trade war aimed to protect American farmers. The announcement shook financial markets, creating uncertainty. Canadian officials called the threats unjustified, arguing their system was legal. The political theater strained U.S. Canada relations. The threats extended to other exports like lumber, crucial for U.S. construction. Experts warned new taxes would raise construction costs, affecting homeownership. This showed how a dairy dispute could have far-reaching consequences. In international trade, everything is connected. Let's dive deep into the often misunderstood world of Canada's dairy tariffs, a topic that sparked heated debates, political posturing, and plenty of confusion on both sides of the border. To truly understand the numbers behind the U.S.-Canada dairy dispute, we need to look beyond the headlines and examine how the system actually works for farmers, exporters, and consumers. Former President Donald Trump famously claimed that Canada slapped U.S. dairy with tariffs as high as 270%. While that number sounds shocking, it's actually a misleading figure that doesn't tell the whole story. Here's the reality. These high tariffs only kick in if U.S. dairy exports go over a specific quota set by Canada. For all exports within that quota, tariffs are either very low or non-existent. In fact, the system is designed to allow a certain amount of U.S. dairy into Canada each year completely tariff-free, making it easier for American farmers to access the Canadian market than many realize. The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, expanded this access even further, increasing the quota and opening up new opportunities for U.S. dairy sales to Canada. As a result, no U.S. dairy exports have actually hit those massive tariffs in recent years. In fact, U.S. dairy exports to Canada have been steadily rising, benefiting American producers. So why the outrage? The claims of unfair treatment were largely strategic exaggerations, used as leverage to pressure Canada during tough trade negotiations. These claims painted Canada as an unfair trading partner, even though the actual trade conditions are more balanced than the rhetoric suggests. For many consumers, the narrative was easy to accept, especially if they weren't familiar with the complex rules and quotas that govern international dairy trade. In reality, the issue became a political weapon, a way to rally support and create a sense of urgency during high-stakes negotiations. The truth is, within the agreed limits, the system is actually quite favorable for U.S. exporters, who continue to find strong demand for their products in Canada. Much of the public fuss was about creating a powerful soundbite rather than reflecting the real dynamics of cross-border dairy trade. The heated rhetoric and dramatic headlines often overshadowed the facts, making it harder for the public to see the true picture. In the end, the debate over Canada's dairy tariffs highlighted a familiar gap, the one between political rhetoric and economic reality, where the truth is often more nuanced than it first appears. At the heart of the ongoing trade conflict between Canada and the United States lies a unique and often misunderstood system, Canada's supply management framework. This system is a cornerstone of Canadian agricultural policy and has shaped the way the country produces and consumes key food products for decades. Supply management is a long-standing framework that governs the production of dairy, poultry, and eggs in Canada. It's not just a set of rules, but a comprehensive approach that covers everything from how much farmers can produce to how much consumers pay at the store. The government tightly controls production levels through quotas and restricts imports using high tariffs. This is done to prevent oversupply, which can cause prices to crash, and to ensure that Canadian farmers have a predictable market for their goods. By limiting imports, the government stabilizes prices and shields the domestic market from global price swings. This system guarantees that Canadian farmers receive stable, fair prices for their products, all without the need for direct government subsidies. For many family farms, this stability is the difference between survival and going out of business. Supply management is more than just an economic policy. It's a social policy designed to protect rural life, support family farms, and maintain vibrant agricultural communities across the country. It helps keep small farms viable and prevents the kind of consolidation seen elsewhere. However, from the perspective of the United States, this system is often viewed as a significant trade barrier. American producers see the high tariffs and strict quotas as obstacles that prevent them from accessing the Canadian market. The U.S. argues that supply management locks them out of a lucrative market just across the border, limiting their ability to sell American dairy, poultry, and eggs to Canadian consumers. Many in the U.S. see the system as anti-competitive, believing it unfairly shields Canadian farmers from international competition and stifles innovation and efficiency. At its core, this is a clash of philosophies. The U.S. champions open, free markets and competition, while Canada prioritizes stability, predictability, and the protection of its rural communities. This fundamental difference in approach fuels ongoing trade talks and negotiations, making it a recurring sticking point in North American trade relations. The debate isn't just about tariffs or quotas, it's about how each country organizes its economy, supports its farmers, and defines fairness in trade. As a result, the disagreement over supply management is a recurring issue in U.S. Canada trade relations, surfacing in every major negotiation and often making headlines. It's a deep-seated conflict that goes beyond economics, touching on national identity, rural livelihoods, and the future of farming in both countries. The debate over how to manage the dairy sector continues, with passionate arguments on both sides and no easy resolution in sight. To truly grasp the ongoing battle between the United States and Canada over dairy, you first need to understand a key concept in international trade: tariff rate quotas, or TRQs. These are special systems that set limits on how much of a product can be imported at a lower tariff rate, before much higher tariffs kick in. Think of them as a gatekeeper controlling the flow of goods across borders. Both the U.S. and Canada rely heavily on TRQs to manage their dairy imports. These quotas are central to how each country protects its own dairy industry, and they play a huge role in shaping the market for milk, cheese, and other dairy products. Imagine a trendy nightclub with a strict VIP list. Only a certain number of people can get in at the regular price. Once the club is full, anyone else who wants to enter has to pay a steep cover charge. That's exactly how TRQs work. Once the quota is filled, additional imports face much higher tariffs, making them far less competitive. The heart of the current dispute lies in how Canada allocates these valuable import quotas. The U.S. argues that Canada's system is unfair and restricts access for American dairy products. American dairy groups claim that Canada's rules make it extremely difficult for U.S. exporters to sell their products north of the border. They say the system is stacked against them, limiting their ability to compete in the Canadian market. According to these groups, Canada often gives import licenses to companies that have little or no incentive to actually bring in foreign dairy. As a result, the shelves in Canadian stores remain dominated by domestic products, and American dairy struggles to gain a foothold. While this may sound like a technical behind-the-scenes issue, it's actually a critical flashpoint in North American trade relations. The way these quotas are managed can have huge economic consequences for farmers, exporters, and consumers on both sides of the border. The disagreement has escalated to formal challenges under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. Both countries have brought their cases before international panels, seeking a resolution. So far, the panels have delivered mixed results. In some cases, they've upheld Canada's right to manage its system as it sees fit, while in others, they've acknowledged U.S. concerns about fairness and market access. At the core, both the U.S. and Canada use protectionist measures to shield their dairy farmers from global competition. Each country wants to support its own producers, but their approaches, and the rules they set, often clash. This conflict is really about two different models of protectionism coming into direct conflict. It's a battle over who gets to benefit most from the lucrative dairy market. The United States is pushing hard for changes that would give its exporters a bigger share of the Canadian market, arguing that fairer quota management would benefit both countries' economies. Meanwhile, Canada is determined to defend its system, which it says is essential for supporting its family farms and ensuring a stable supply of homegrown dairy products for Canadian consumers. In the end, this is a high-stakes chess match between two nations, each maneuvering to protect its own interests. The outcome will shape the future of dairy trade in North America and could set the tone for other trade disputes around the world. For American dairy farmers, the trade dispute is frustrating. They operate in a competitive, export-dependent market. They produce more milk than the U.S. can consume, needing foreign markets. Canada seems like a natural customer, but tariffs block access. Farmers feel they're denied fair competition. Seeing Canadian products in the U.S. adds to the unfairness narrative. Trade uncertainty makes long-term planning tough for farmers. This instability discourages investment and affects loans. Dairy groups lobby for a hard line with Canada. For farmers, it's about fighting for fair market access. The dairy drama affects consumers on both sides of the border. In Canada, supply management raises food prices. Critics say it makes staples expensive, impacting tight budgets. In the U.S., retaliatory tariffs are a concern. Tariffs on Canadian lumber could raise construction costs. Past lumber tariffs increased U.S. home building costs. This affects housing affordability for American families. Trade disputes can hit consumers' wallets unexpectedly. Consumers lack powerful lobbying groups like industries. The debate often overlooks household budget impacts. Trade policy affects daily lives and financial well-being. The real-world consequences go beyond economics. The USMCA aimed to modernize North American trade. It granted U.S. dairy farmers more access to Canada. This was a win for U.S. producers, increasing tariff-free exports. However, it didn't dismantle Canada's supply management. The agreement codified the structure while allowing disputes. Dispute panels have been tested with mixed results. The U.S. challenged Canada's quota allocation under the USMCA. Panels found merit in U.S. complaints but upheld Canada's system. Both sides claim partial victories, but the conflict persists. The USMCA moved the fight to the courtroom, not ending it. The core disagreement over supply management remains. The fight continues within the legal framework. Canada's commitment to supply management is firm. Leaders defend it as a key agricultural policy. It's culturally and economically important, especially in Quebec and Ontario. The system provides price stability and supports rural communities. Canada defends it on the world stage, preserving it in trade talks. USMCA rulings affirm Canada's compliance, strengthening its resolve. The political cost of abandoning it is immense. The dairy dispute will remain a persistent issue. It pits free markets against domestic protection. The U.S. champions market access. Canada prioritizes stability. Future negotiations will see this issue resurface. The USMCA provides a framework for managing the conflict. The economic value is small, but the political symbolism is huge. The dispute fuels nationalist sentiments and affects cooperation. A permanent resolution seems unlikely. Managed tension is the most realistic outcome. Leaders must find a way to coexist with this disagreement.